So guys, this is one of those things that I want to make, but I don't want to be like beating on a dead horse here. Yeah, you guys have been watching me for any period of time, especially the last 2 years, know that I tend to bounce through cars really quickly, and I get, I have ADD when it comes to cars. The novelty wears off of a new car through me in the first couple of months, and then by month 6 of owning the car, I'm already thinking about what I'm going to trade out into. And that didn't change with the Type R. And I guess it was also like I wanted to. This is relevant to what could potentially happen for this year coming. So I wanted to do like a what could happen in 2022 / what could happen with the Type R. And I've been all over the place. Like I was like, well, I'm thinking about trading the Type R to. I'm definitely going to keep the Type R to thinking about trading for this car, thinking about trading for that car. So I've kind of bounced all over the place. I keep bouncing between the idea of a Corvette still, or even a Hellcat came up as an idea, and a Supra. So here's my things, right? Here's my issue with these cars, right? And here's the main reason why I really would like to trade out the Type R. There's two big reasons. One, I think that this is now is a prime time to trade out the Type R. If you're an FK8 owner, yeah, and you're thinking the idea, you're flirting with the idea of possibly trading out or whatnot, now is the exact time to do it, because the 2023 Type R is most likely going to drop mid-year. I don't think we've had an official reveal yet, but I do believe it is coming. Like, it's not a secret that it's out there running around being tested. And of course, we got the 11th Gen Civic last year. So, and it's the Type R, the FK8's already had a long run. Now, with the way the market has been, the Type R has consistently sold well over MSRP. Even me buying a used Type R that was a couple years old was still several $1,000s over MSRP. A chunk, almost $10,000 over MSRP, and that's crazy, right? And if you're thinking about the whole idea of the Type R, the new generation Type R dropping now, then that's just going to tank the fucking value of the FK8. I do believe that the nostalgia is going to switch over to the FK8, from the FK8 to whatever this new thing is badged as, and that's going to be the new hype. And I think that the value on the FK8s are going to drop, probably down to like the low 30s. So if you're in the FK8 right now over MSRP, now is your best time for trade-in value. I think the trade-in value right now, I've had a couple of different quotes, and it'll sell between 38 to 40,000 right now, and that's decent. That's very decent. But it's I think that if the new Type R comes out and it drops down, the value is going to be down to the low 30s. Then it puts me in a bad spot where I'm going to be upside down on what I owe on the car again, which is what I'm trying to avoid. But the problem is, all the cars I'm interested in are like in the low $50,000 range. Now, it's not that I can't afford it, because by the time financing was done and I put my leftovers from the SI on top of the Type R, that's where I was. I was at the low 50,000 range when I got into the Type R. Yes, I know, insane, but of course, that's just how it was with me being nasty upside down the SI, which was a result of the 11th Gen coming out, because I owed what the trade-in value was for the SI until that car came out. When the new line came out, the value dropped like $7,000. It's ridiculous, right? So I don't want to go into paying, like $60,000 for a $50,000 car. That's my issue, right? So I'm like, well, if I'm going to trade it out with a Type R as soon as possible, like right now would be the thing. But even if I don't want it being nasty upside down, I don't know if I want to go into another $50,000 loan. And especially considering the cars that I'm looking at. The inflation has also boosted up the price of the C7s. A couple years ago, you could have got a C7 for the low 30s, right? Now it's harder to find it at that range. Most of the C7s are looking in like the mid $40,000 range, and I'm not willing to pay that kind of money for that old of a car. Same thing with the Hellcat. The Hellcat I saw had low mileage on it, but it was a very old car overall, and they still wanted $52,000 for it. So my hopeful saviors could be the potential $40,000 Nissan Z that's going to be faster and better styling overall look of a car than the Type R is. But I think that if the current market is anything to go off of, I don't believe that the Z is going to be sold at MSRP. I think it's going to be sold well over. So it's still probably going to be a $50,000+ car, which makes me really question whether I want to do it. Now, the other car I would like to get would be the Supra. But I'm very, very, very confident that the Supra is going to get a manual version. And when the manual version of the Supra comes out, all those automatics that people fucking hated on are going to tank on it on value. So what I think would be stupid right now would be to jump into a Supra at a $50,000 mark when in a year or two from now, potentially, theory, that it could wind up being a low 40s to high $30,000 car. So I'm like, why the fuck would I do that now? Why not be an upside down nasty on the Supra when I could just wait a little while and get it then? So, and of course, then the other dark horse would be potentially buying the new generation Type R, trading out from this Type R to the next Type R, and doing it at a time when the car is fresh on the market, so potentially getting car content there while the car is new. But again, current market is anything to sign off of. I don't think that the car is going to be sold at MSRP. It's probably going to be sold well over. And then at the same time, if it's going to be sold over MSRP and the current generation Type R is going to drop, then it doesn't seem like a very smart move, especially without like a significant horsepower uptick. Now, I haven't seen any estimates on what the new Type R is going to produce, but I would imagine it's going to be built off the same engine platform, and that if it's going to be an increase, it's going to be minimal. Like I don't see it being bumped up from 305 rated to 350 or something like that. And honestly, it would have to be that at least for me to even consider it, because my biggest gripe with the Type R is the fact that the car is way too slow, and it's also kind of expensive to modify, relatively speaking. Considering that if you get a car like the Supra is making like 400 horsepower on downpipe and tune, versus the Type R, which you have to throw full bolt-ons and tune to get into the high 300s. And that's just very unsatisfying for me. I think that any performance car, my goals is at least at a minimum of 400 horsepower. And now maybe nitpicking to consider the low 300s or high 300s to be nitpicking. But still, like, if you add up all of the bolt-ons, you're looking at a very significant chunk of change to get to that point. And then if you're thinking about considering, upgrading the turbo, and I've seen mixed reviews there. I've seen a lot of aftermarket turbos fail with very low mileage, and they're being also very expensive. So I don't like the idea of that. So now here's what is most likely going to happen. The cars that I want are realistically going to be still too high for me to want to commit to. The cars I would really like to get, I think, are going to be inflated on price. So, putting big boy pants on, I think that it's most likely going to happen that I'm going to wind up keeping the Type R, because I don't think that enough shit is going to change in the next 6 months for me to feel comfortable getting out of that car and not being buried upside down and rolling it into another one, right? So I'm relatively okay with that. So as actually a shout out to you Type R owners, because I know there's a significant amount of you that watch and communicate with me. Drop your mods and power rating in the comments down below, because I'm constantly scouring the internet. So I'm trying to take the upsides with this, right? So the upsides being that if I commit one more year to this car, there's a good chance that I'm going to ride this motherfucker till it ends and I own it. And if I do wind up getting it to the point where I own it, I'll own a Type R and I'll own a S2000, which would be great. Now, also another thing is content for the FK8 still isn't necessarily as high as I think it should be. Like, there's not as much content out there as you would imagine there would be. There's a decent amount? Yeah, there is. But I routinely check, just doing an FK8 search on YouTube, and it's still pretty much consistently holding like the top videos that I've been seeing forever. Now, if I were to keep the Type R, which is looking like what's going to most likely happen, is I'm going to start doing bolt-ons. And I think that the Type R could potentially be the first time ever that I start doing videos based on a car and not just me talking about one, right? Where I'm actually going out shooting car content. Go out to the dyno, get the baseline run, which I think is probably going to be the high 280s or low 290s, which is why I don't think the car is very fast. Relatively speaking, it's heavy and it's not even 300 wheel horsepower, so not that impressive. And I know that everybody talks about, it's impressive in the corners and whatnot. The closest I get to corner racing is in traffic, which is not something I do often. And that's not how I like to drive. I like to drive straight line, highways, pools, whatever. I don't give a fuck about how well the car corners. So yeah, I guess, for that speaking, it was the greatest car to buy. But it was one of those things where I just kind of like stumbled onto the opportunity and I just went with it. And so what I would like to do is a baseline videos for the baseline, what mine makes, and then start buying bolt-ons. I have an idea. I would like to get, of course, intake and downpipe are a given, a no-brainer at this point. So intake and downpipe and maybe possibly an intercooler. and see where it goes from there. I think if I can get the car into the 350s, 360 range without spending a fuck ton of money, I'd be extremely happy with the car. Because at that point, you're looking at you're looking at around an 80 horsepower increase, 80 horsepower, which is nothing to sneeze at. And I think that would be a lot better, suited for daily fill. And then of course I still have the S2000, which is hopefully going to be done soon. Now, my weekends, the last couple weekends have been fucked up. Obviously, there's a holiday shit been going on. I've been seeing people, like a lot of my shit is unplanned, so I wound up thinking that I was going to lose a whole weekend again because of unplanned shit and get-togethers that were lasting way longer than I expected. But I actually completed my short block last night for the S2000. So at this point, it really is just like bolting on the oil pump, bolting on the head, setting timing, and then the rest is pretty easy. So the last big hurdle I had for rebuilding the F22C was just assembling the short block, which I did last night. So pretty happy with that, and pictures will be coming soon. So I guess overall the theme of this video would be to say that there's a very good chance that 2022 could be the year that I actually start shooting actual car content and not just me doing my little discussion vlogs that some of you love, but a lot of people love to hate on. So next year could be the year of the car for this channel. Hopefully with that, with seeing these two kind of cars out there being actually focused on and driven and shown on the channel, that we can bring in more subs, bring in more potential customers, more potential customers leads to more revenue leads to more exciting shit that I can do for the channel, right? The S2000 block is together. I know I've been saying this, but for sure, going to be working on it throughout the week, doing a little bit of stuff here and there. Hopefully come the end of next weekend, the long block will be complete and I will be sitting and waiting for it to get put back into the car. And over the next month or two, I think by the end of February, I can start having a clear line of sight on exactly what I'm going to do with the Type R when I start doing it. And start collecting parts for that. Because the only thing I really need to do is just complete the S2000. Once all the expenses for that are covered and that car is done, then I can move on to the Type R. And I guess if I keep the bolt-ons to a minimum, like get the crucial ones that aren't super expensive, then the car, then that could be done relatively quickly too. And if I wind up finishing paying for the car and I keep the car, then one of the first things I'm going to do after the car is 100% paid for is do a rebuild and go for higher power. The goal would be like mid 400s on pump. All right, guys. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to shout that out there. The chances are some new shit's gonna be happening on this channel next year, and that's it. If you got any questions, guys, you leave them in the comments down below, even if it's not related to the topic or whatnot. There's no guarantee that I'm going to answer every single question, but for the most part, I do. But it's definitely a guarantee that you're going to get an answer there versus hitting my DMs on social media, which I don't really answer anymore. I don't do questions, guys, on my DMs. All the social media stuff, if you want DMs, it's for business. All right, guys, so thanks for watching, and peace.